There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here with Lindy. Lindy is back, and welcome back, Lindy.
Hi, Sean. It's good to be here.
Happy Pride.
Yeah.
A little early. We are here to talk about queer books. And I can't think of anybody I'd rather talk to that has probably read as widely in this area as Lindy. And you have a bunch of recommendations.
I sure do, yes.
Well, I'm just going to let you go, and I might try to get a word in edgewise here and there, but...
I'm starting with this one.
The Magic Fish?
Yes.
And how would you pronounce the author's?
It's by Trung Nguyen, and it's based on his own life, but it's a fictional story. A 12-year-old Vietnamese American who wants to come out to his parents who've immigrated from Vietnam. So the year is 1988. And we know this because when the television is on, there's a reporting about Matthew Shepard being found. Yeah. Anyway, Tien is the name of the boy in the story. And he doesn't even know how to say the word in Vietnamese. He actually goes to the library and asks the librarian if she can help him find out how to talk about being gay in Vietnamese. He thinks it's pretty odd that he comes out to his librarian before his parents, but he's also really afraid of being rejected. It's a middle grade novel, but good for all ages. And the artwork is kind of clear line. Actually, I'll show you a piece from the back. That's how he did the cover before there was color, because then you can compare. So this is what the black and white cover looks like, and how different it is when you've got color. So there are actually 3 colors in here: red, yellow, and blue, and they're background colors basically in shading. And it's used in a really clever way because you quickly realize that all of the panels that are done in red are contemporary. The panels that are yellow are from his mother's memories from Vietnam. And the panels that are blue are fairy tales. So what happens is he and his mother read aloud from fairy tales from the library. They both enjoy the stories. His mom is increasing her English that way. And so as they read the story, we see the panels of what's happening in the fairy tale. The first one is a traditional European story called Tattercoats. The second one is a Vietnamese version of Cinderella. And the third one is The Little Mermaid. The stories of the fairy tales are actually relevant to their lives, and the costumes are fantastic. There's Vietnamese costumes for The Little Mermaid, for example.
Now, is this a Vietnamese family who live in Vietnam
No, in the U.S.
In the U.S.
In the Midwest, I think.
And is the graphic novel, it's a novel?
Yes, it's a fictionalized version of the author's own experience. The relationship between the boy and his mother is just so great. There's the love there, and there's his mother is depicted as a real person with her own concerns of what's going on, and including concerns of losing her Vietnamese and losing touch with her family back home. And, there's just lots of stuff. She's always concerned with what her son is doing at school and that he's doing okay. So it's a very nuanced kind of portrayal. Middle grade would be the primary audience, but, right up into adult. I've talked to a lot of adults who've read it and loved it.
That's great. What have you got next?
Because of this really clean line style in these illustrations, it's a similar style to Alison Bechdel. And so I got her new book, A Secret to Superhuman Strength.
I think maybe Britain is doing that for Pride too this month.
The difference in size between Fun Home, let's just put it on top so you can see how much bigger the new book is. Fun Home was her first memoir. This is her third. The middle one is called Are You My Mother? It's in the house somewhere. I'm not sure where it's at. And I'm only one chapter in, but she goes decade by decade. The fitness crazes, as they change through the decades. So she was always interested in being more powerful and having agency and control. And so being able to control her body, I think, and to have some muscles was always attractive to her right from a very young age. So she writes about that and about how it's connected to her creativity, I think. So she was born in September 1960, and I was born in July 1960. So as I'm going through this, there's a scene where she shows her little brother climbing out of his crib. And it's the exact crib that we had when I was a kid. So I'm reading this as slowly as I can because I don't want it to end. And unlike her previous books that are done with one color in addition to the grayscale, this one's in full color.
Lovely.
Pastel, but full color. With all graphic novels, it's always a good idea to read them slowly because especially if you're someone who's used to reading only prose, you might miss out on the visual narrative. And so by slowing down and just looking at everything, you get a lot more out of it. But,
I think you would know the answer to this question, Lindy. Does reading about exercise burn any calories? I hope so.
I wish. Have you read any of Alison Bechdel before?
I have not. I'm a big fan of the Bechdel test. That's been her major impact on my life. I'm a big believer in the Bechdel test. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, she describes it in here, I think.
Is that where it first came out? Yeah.
Oh, actually, it might have been in the Dykes to Watch Out For. Now I can't remember.
So we should say, for the people not in the know, what is the Bechdel test? It's about movies. It's a quick, very useful, very accurate feminist test of cinema. And how would you describe it?
Well, does the movie have more than one woman in it? And do those women talk about anything other than men?
Right, that's the Bechdel test. And I often use it to critique some of the novels that I read.
Right. So these two authors, I mentioned that they have that clear line style. It's almost like Tintin, those comics. You see all of the outlines and it's very clear. Well, I'm going to recommend one that is not at all like that.
Mm-hmm. Red Rock Baby Candy?
Yes, Red Rock Baby Candy. The author is Shira Spector. She's a Jewish Canadian lesbian. And, here's the end papers.
Wow.
And this is like stream of consciousness, impressionistic, visual jazz.
Visual jazz, I love that. Okay.
So there's there is a lot of black and white, done with ink, done with pencil, but then there's also collage, multimedia. I don't know if you can see a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
And watercolor paint, and her narrative, and text. It goes all over the place. Okay, you see there's pretty hard to tell even where you're supposed to read sometimes.
Yeah.
And what she's writing about. So this is memoir also. And it covers a span of about 10 years. And she is writing about painful and sad things, an ectopic pregnancy, and subsequent infertility. She really wanted to have another child. She and her wife already have one child, but they want another one. And so, there's some pages where you just see in small little panels all the way around the page each month with menstrual blood on the panties. The other thing that's affecting her is her father has a brain tumor. He has cancer and he dies. And his death really is hard for her to take. She really, really misses him. Like I said, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of pain, but there's also celebration. She does move through that and come back to saying there's lots of things to celebrate and to enjoy and to love. Her partner, Chris, she wants to have good hard sex with her to kind of shake her out of this. And in one of the scenes, and you see the blender there.
Yep.
What's written across the blender is lift, and then down her hand it says, lift me until I see stars. And not everybody might get what she's referring to there, because Gertrude Stein's famous poem, Lifting Belly, is a very erotic lesbian love poem. But that it doesn't even matter if you get everything. You just kind of let it in, all of this stuff all over the place. You look on the shelves on this page. You're in the kitchen here, and there's Don't Panic Peppermint tea, and there's Calm the Fuck Down herbal tea. And then there's a little bottle with a dropper and thing on top that says Chill Out for Dogs. She's a woman who loves lipstick. She loves dresses. Many of the pages show her lingerie hanging from the shower rods. It's an amazing, amazing book. And it can be, I think, disconcerting, because it's just so wild and all over the place.
Kaleidoscopic.
Yes. But it's also quite powerful. And one more graphic novel by a lesbian, Shadow Life, by Hiromi Goto. And the art is by Anne Su, XU. Anne is from the US, and Hiromi Goto is Canadian, of Japanese descent. And it's about, I'll open it up because the cover is kind of shiny and it's hard to see. So it's about an old woman who gets placed in a retirement home and long-term care or assisted living, something like that. She does not like it at all. And so she escapes and she finds her own little apartment. She doesn't have much stuff. It's pretty bare. And she keeps avoiding talking to her three daughters who are trying to track her down. Kumiko, yes. So there she is. And her landlords are a couple of gay guys. So he says, Mark and I found some cinder blocks last week. You can have them if you like. "Oh, you sweet young man." And he says, "Oh, stop that. Tell me more about the young part." As she was trying to find stuff to make bookshelves. There are possibly elements of Japanese mythology because these little black strange creatures seem to be bopping around, mischievous sort of spirit things. But there's also this dark shape that she suspects might be Death that's stalking her. So she goes to get a used vacuum to vacuum it up. So that's what she's got on the cover there. He's just so feisty and indomitable, and I just love her to bits.
You've already made me love her, and I haven't read the book yet. You totally sold me on that. That is such a Sean book.
I don't know if this is the subtitle, but on the cover it says, "When death comes too soon, fight dirty."
Awesome.
Yes. Kumiko, although she was married and had these 3 daughters, she reconnects with a female lover from one of her exes. So she's bisexual. So that's cool too. That we have not only an old woman, but a bisexual old woman.
How fabulous.
Yeah.
That one, I think that's probably the one of so far that I will read first.
Yes. Of the ones that I've told you about, I would say that would be the most Sean book. And the magic fish, even though it's got all this fairy tale element in it, the way that it's told, I think you'd like it.
Yeah, no, wonderful.
They're all fantastic. I saw that on your TBR for Pride, you had The Fabulous Zed Watson. Have you started that?
No, but I think I'm going to start it today.
Good. I read the first 25 pages
and
it got me right away.
Great. Yeah, no, it sounds really good. I'm delighted to hear that it's starting out well for you.
Yeah, there's a fabulous voice. Yeah. And I ended up rereading this one today because we were talking about graphic novels. This is Vivek Shraya's graphic novel with art by Ness. And this is a true story, actually. It's not a long book. It's about when she was getting harassed on the internet. A strange person was sending her, kind of threatening stuff. After a couple of years, she decided to write a book about it, as a way to kind of process what had happened, and talked about it on social media. Vivek is on social media all the time. And this person got in touch with her again with a cease and desist order because it was an intellectual property infringement.
What?
Using his emails and stuff. And this guy put his name and his address, in Ontario, everything, the whole thing was there, which in the graphic novel they've changed to a different name and address, but everything else, like the wording of the emails, was pretty much kept the same. Her mom was very supportive, and the wording of what she said to Vivek is also, pretty much kept the same. But there's some meta stuff, like in this scene at the end, Vivek and the artist are doing a book launch at Venus Envy, which is a sex toy store in Vancouver, a woman positive place. And so I'm going to try and put this a little closer so you can see. There's all of the dildos behind them. And so they're holding the book. Nestle is really shy, so she's got the book in front of her face. So they're holding the books to read from them. In the background, there's a bookshelf with all the books on it. And I'm holding the book, reading about, these layers. Pretty fun.
The true story is just boggles my mind. How dare you infringe on my death threat?
Yeah.
What was the result of that lawsuit?
Oh, laughter.
Dismissed? Laughter. Good.
Yes.
You never know with the justice system, the so-called justice system.
Yeah. However, the psychological toll that it took on Vivek Shraya is evident. It's portrayed in a sort of a surreal kind of way, which I think you can even see on the cover with the just kind of going through the paper, going through the screen, the phone being on fire. Vivek's new book is not a graphic novel.
It's a play.
She just tries every format. And this one was performed a few times in Toronto and in Calgary right before the pandemic locked everything down. There's some photos at the back from on stage. How to Fail as a Pop Star. It's pretty funny. It's about her teenage years mostly, just determined to, compete in these talent shows at malls. Pretty hilarious and sad.
I still have yet to read anything Vivek Shraya has written. So where should I start? Or where should anybody start with Vivek Shraya's oeuvre?
The very first book is a collection of short pieces that I think you would really like. God Loves Hair.
God Loves Hair. Well, that's going to be depressing for me. Great. Well, I will start with that one.
Yeah. I read Darrel McLeod's first memoir. It's called Mamaskatch, and it won the Governor General Literary Award for nonfiction. And he's got a new one out now.
How would you pronounce that title?
Peyakow, I think. Peyakow. The subtitle is Reclaiming Cree Dignity. And inside it says that Peyakow is a title borrowed from the Cree word for one who walks alone. He's gay. He grew up in northern Alberta, became an educator, a principal, and worked for the Canadian government. I've only read the first chapter, and it's set back in time to when Treaty 8 was first signed in northern Alberta. It's a treaty that was never ratified.
Oh.
So I'm hoping that there's going to be more about that in this book, about what's been happening more recently, trying to get justice for that huge oversight.
I have never heard of Darrel McLeod.
I think he lives on Vancouver Island now. Yeah, he grew up in Alberta and Edmonton. There's this one, Burning the Night by Glen Huser.
Yes.
Now this is different from anything else I've been telling people about because it's historical fiction. An author from small town Alberta writing about a man who comes from small town Alberta. He's fascinated by his aunt and wants to know more about her. Kind of the uncovering of this earlier story and his own very closeted self also needs to be uncovered. So it's a quiet sort of book, for people who don't like to have too much happening too fast.
Sounds like a Sean book. Now, and Huser, his first novel was a YA novel before there was such a thing as YA. When was it? 1989? Grace Lake.
No, that one is the only one that we have in the adult section at the library. All of his other books are YA books or middle grade.
I remember it was about a teenager, but I really connected with it. I was an adult when I read it in 1989, sadly. It was one of the most searing portraits of gay shame that I've ever read in fiction. And that one scene near the end of the novel has always stuck with me. And that's why I was interested to read more by Glen Huser, because he just captured something that was so deep in my gay soul journey in that novel. So
Right. I wasn't sure about this when with the initial pages, because there is a prologue, and and there's a fire and some sort of journal or diary that's partly burned, and then it does come into the story later, because then we start with chapter 1. The opening is not that strong. What was her age when I first saw her? 55. She was not that much older than my mother, a few years, but to my 11-year-old eyes, she was an old woman. I just found it not very, it's more workaday, but the subtlety of it grew on me more. It kept me wanting to read it. All right.
Great. Let's do one more.
Okay, I'm going to talk about something completely different.
Uh-huh.
So this one is more slapstick, raunchy. Even you see they even call them "come fuck me boots" in the story.
And that's the title is The
Adventures of Isabel, and it's by Candas Jane Dorsey.
And she's an Edmonton writer, is she not?
She is an Edmonton writer. And this is called An Epitome Apartments Mystery. It's a mystery, Sean.
Well, I'll allow it.
And each chapter is titled with one line from the Ogden Nash poem that starts, Isabel met an enormous bear. Isabel didn't care. The bear was hungry. The bear was ravenous. The bear's big mouth was cruel and cavernous. The bear said, Isabel, glad to meet you. How do, Isabel? Now I'll eat you. Isabel didn't worry. Isabel didn't scream or scurry. She washed her hands and she straightened her hair up. Then Isabel quietly ate the bear up. And it goes on. And so for each chapter, that's one of the lines. And there's just so many puns and double entendres. And she says, I live in a suite on the 4th floor of something called the Epitome Apartments. The landlord and locals call it the Epitome, with a silent final E, and no irony at all. My balcony, where I have a few scraggly window boxes, my feeble tribute to the earth goddess, is a 3-foot square iron grillwork cage, the landing of the fire escape, really, floating above a grimy urban alley that leads to the best, in my opinion, Chinese restaurant in town. But for months, the budget hadn't allowed eating out, even at the rock bottom prices to be had there, and depression and unemployment had me trapped in the epitome of epitomes, with someone canned asking me what you get when you fall in love. So
that sounds fun. Is it more than fun, or?
Yes, it is, because it's about violence against women. Yes, it's a young woman who's murdered, and she's asked for help to find out what happened to her. And because she's so strapped for money, she decides, okay, I got laid off because there were cutbacks of being a social worker. So now I'll be a private investigator. Sure.
Wow.
Pure fun murder mystery.
Wow. I loved the verse you read. It was very, very woman power. Expression of female power. Yeah, love that.
Yeah, well, you can imagine the main character. Let me just eat that bear.
That's right. Great. Well, oh my goodness. So even though you probably had twice as many books that you wanted to tell us about, Lindy, you have given me too many books that I want to try. And I know that my subscribers will feel the same way. This has been the epitome of queer literary fabulousness. As always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean.
Happy
Always
Pride.
a pleasure.
Happy
Yes.
Pride.
Happy Pride to you too.